What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it turns out Nintendo has kind of responded to the JoyCon drift stuff. They didn't respond about the lawsuit or anything that everyone's talking about right now, nothing like that, but they did technically respond to an outlet about all of these reports on the JoyCon drift. I think it does tell us a little more than a lot of people are saying it is, because it's a pretty generic response. But we're going to talk about it here. We're also going to talk a bit about an interesting trademark from Sega that it's giving people some hope. And I really hope that Sega actually has some plans for this series after the trademark that they just posted and we found. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure the like button, it does help out. And get subscribed if you want to keep up to date on all the gaming news that's going on out there in the world. Do this every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. So come on by and keep up to date on everything that's going on. We're actually going to start today with an interesting post on Reddit that talks a bit about Black Ops 4. Now, of course, we know Black Ops 4 has some a bit of a microtransaction problem. Now, look, Activision, of course, does this quite a bit, although they also did things like sell, maps separately, the battle pass, all this stuff. Well, it looks like some people decided, hey, why don't we add all that stuff up and see what it actually costs beyond, I guess, the $60 price point of this thing. And as you're seeing here with this Reddit post, it's a little over $1,300. Now in the title, they put $1,800. That's actually in a different currency, I believe, from Australia, their currency. So when converted to the US dollar, it's about $1,300 if you add up all of the microtransactions. And yeah, that is actually as ridiculous as it sounds, but I bring this up because, of course, we're going into another Call of Duty, and we really didn't have a lot of this stuff when we first bought Black Ops 4. In fact, that was kind of made a big deal in some of the reviews, said, hey, we don't have a lot of microtransactions or anything crazy going on right now, and then they added it in. Something to keep in mind going into the reviews and the talks about this new Call of Duty coming out. And while it sounds like they're doing some interesting stuff with it, and I'll be checking it out, new engine and everything, just keep in mind the microtransactions always be added later, and they can be added in full force as we're seeing here. Oh, we also had a new Mega Man X game, or I guess a Rockman X game announced. It's for mobile phones, so before people get too excited, and no, it's not Mega Man X9, it's just called Rockman X Dive, and you're seeing some of the trailer here. This is announced currently, it seems anyway, in a few different regions, not the US, although it does apparently sound like there is a global version currently in development, but it does appear that this is going to be showing up in places like Taiwan, for example, Japan, but this is, from what we're seeing, an actual traditional Mega Man game, not on rails or anything. It's not going to have a ton of gacha mechanics, which is odd, because I figure that's why a lot of these companies like Capcom are seeing here is going to mobile phones, but there seems like there will be some sort of microtransactions, obviously, to monetize with. Odd decision to use X, though. I thought they would have used something like Battle Network. That just seems like it fits perfectly with a gacha mechanic and cell phones. But we'll see what this is all about, and currently it's slated to head to iOS and Android, and we'll see when this supposed global version is coming out, because I will check it out. It seems like they're actually putting some work into this one, and it's not just a cash grab mobile game. Oh, and Daemon X Machina is coming up pretty quick. It's coming out September 13th, so about a week before Zelda comes out, which means a week later a lot of people are going to move on to the Switch Lite and Zelda and everything, but for that week we should at least be able to play Daemon X Machina without too many interruptions. However, if you're curious how large it's going to be, and of course how much space you'll need on your micro SD card, well, Nintendo UK actually posted how much space you will need on the product page. It appears to be just over 6 gigabytes, about 6.2, 6.3 gigabytes according to their page, and that's actually pretty good, to be honest. It's not too bad. A lot of times we're used to these massive downloads, 40, 50, 60 gigabyte downloads minimum, so to see these games again on the Switch be like 6, 7 gigabytes, that's not bad. Of course, we've seen Fire Emblem be about 11. We've seen, of course, Breath of the Wild be almost 14. So to see this, it's pretty good. I'm happy with the file sizes that we're currently getting on the Switch. However, of course, it only has, I guess, 32 gigabytes of internal storage when you first buy it anyway without an SD card. So it's good at least that their games are matching up to the amount of space that you technically have. And in an odd move, one that I guess makes sense if you really think about it, but it was kind of surprising, it appears that PlayStation is actually partnering with Evo as they put out this tweet here It says, we're excited to partner with PlayStation for EVO 2019. 8 of the 9 main event titles are presented by PS4. I guess the other one would be Smash then. Don't miss any of the action and stay tuned for more news from PlayStation at EVO. So I'm curious what they would announce there. We must be getting a new PlayStation All-Stars, I guess. Now, it could be something with Samurai Showdown. It could be something with Street Fighter, for example. There's a few things they could do, or who knows, maybe it's just a new fighting game that is going to debut on the PlayStation first and then head to other systems later, but interesting stuff. PlayStation partnering with EVO this year, and I assume it's because they also have some news to show the fighting game community, so we'll see what they have. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start with this whole Joy-Con drift issue that Nintendo's actually kind of responded to. The Verge did a full cover of this entire issue that's going on, including the lawsuit, all the complaints, essentially trying to explain point by point as to what's going on in one big summary, and they seem to have actually gotten some kind of response from Nintendo, which is a bit surprising because a lot of places haven't been able to get it, but then you read the response from Nintendo and it definitely reads like something that is a very generic PR move here. It's nothing big. In fact, they didn't really even say much. However, the fact that they didn't say a ton also makes a lot of people wonder right now if that lawsuit actually is having some sort of effect on Nintendo when it comes to how they're navigating the waters here. Anyway, this is the response sent to Verge. At Nintendo, we take great pride in creating quality products, and we are continuously making improvements to them. We are aware at recent reports that some Joy-Con controllers are not responding correctly. We want our consumers to have fun with Nintendo Switch, and if anything falls short of this goal, we always encourage them to visit the support.com for Nintendo, support.nintendo.com, so we can help. So I have a feeling a lot of people have been going to the support.nintendo.com page for their Joy-Con controllers just based on the responses online and how these things always seem to blow up on Reddit and everything and all over forums. It does seem to be an issue that is growing and is a bit bigger. There's definitely a lot of awareness around this issue at this time, which is odd because while it's always kind of been there, like I said, people have always talked about it, it seemed to have kind of come to a head now, and everyone's really talking about it now. Everyone's kind of coming together over this. We have a class action lawsuit that seems to be getting kind of large online, and Nintendo's obviously aware of this, as they at least said that they are aware of reports, but they didn't really say much else. And I do wonder if that is because the lawsuit actually has something to this. Like, is Nintendo looking at this lawsuit and saying, wow, they might actually have something here because our design isn't great for this, and there are a lot of people affected, but they're also saying that they would take care of it. So there's a few things that I think could end up happening here because they're obviously aware of it. They're not saying much. They're pretty much sealed right now when it comes to this. I mean, The Verge probably had to do a lot just to get that super generic statement out of them. What I would like to see here is that they extend their warranty program, because we've seen a lot of people say that they got it replaced once, then it went again, but then they were out of the 1-year warranty. One thing that Microsoft did with the 360 was that they not only sent you a box, but they also extended it to 3 years worth of warranty. If the Joy-Con controllers have a 3-year warranty on them, at that point you would at least feel mostly protected. However, also the Joy-Con controllers are fairly necessary to, use the system. And while a 360 controller was obviously a 360 system being broken, this is still something that we would expect Nintendo to work out and figure out. And I hope that they have tweaked the design, and I hope the Switch Lite isn't using these same Joy-Con controllers, because Nintendo is not making any statements heavily right now. They're not making anything that's like super in-depth or clear. They're kind of steering, honestly, away from anything about this right now. So I hope that that's because they actually have changed the design, and some of the new Joy-Cons that are going to start cycling in fix the issue, but then they also have to go back and figure out what they can do for people who currently have the Switch and Joy-Con controllers. There's a lot of Switch units out there. How many Joy-Cons do you think are out there? Again, at least the 3-year warranty, I would say, and make sure that the people don't have to pay for shipping or anything, and get all of those replaced with the new ones. And I think that would at least be a good start, and I think people would actually be happy with that. Next up, let's talk about a story that I thought was kind of funny, and I don't know how truthful it is, because it does seem like it was very reactionary from AMD when it came to changing prices on their newer cards. Now, if you remember, we of course had the NVIDIA Super Series that's come out recently, which kind of annoyed some early adopters, I guess, of the current RTX cards, the 2070, 2060, 2080, where you spend a lot of money and then, oh, look, the super cards come out, same pricing and everything, not too much later, but like a year or so later, and they're just outright faster, right? That was kind of a problem. But AMD also put out some cards that the super cards appeared to affect, and then they changed their pricing. Well, according to AMD, this was all planned. This was a trap. And I'm not even kidding. There's even headlines saying that AMD is admitting that it was just a straight up trap. Now, I don't know how much I actually believe this and how much I look at this and say, oh, that's them just tooting their own horn and congratulating themselves, because that's literally what they do in some of the quotes and everything that they're talking about here. I don't think they had this actually planned out as much as they say they did. So we had their two cards, the 5700 XT go from $379 down to $349. Then we also had just the regular 5700 go from $449 down to $399 to combat the super cards. I just don't think AMD actually had this planned out, but they want us to believe that they did. However, NVIDIA did at least change kind of what they were doing as well, so it's interesting to see this back and forth with AMD and NVIDIA again. However, AMD still needs to attempt to compete with something like the 2080 card, and then we need NVIDIA to start making more lower-end cards that are compelling and actually good price, so maybe they'll continue this cutthroat price-changing stuff. I mean, at least prices went down. I mean, that's good for consumers. I just don't think AMD had it planned out like they think they did. Next up, let's talk about Sega and Nights. Nights into Dreams was, of course, a game that people really liked back on the Sega Saturn. It was definitely a standout in the Saturn library. Although the Saturn library, it is tough for people to name like games that really exploded in popularity, but Nights was definitely one that you saw in a lot of commercials for the Saturn. And here we go, because it looks like Sega has done a trademark around this series, and that is, of course, getting people very excited and very interested as to what this could be, but there's always a chance, and I'm just going to say this now, that it could be a mobile game. We just talked about Capcom using Mega Man X in a mobile game, so you never know. I just want to put that out there just in case so you don't, get disappointed if that's what happens. So what's the trademark? Well, they actually trademarked Nights Dream Wheel. This is specifically in Japan, and it does appear to be part of the Nights series. Now, of course, we had Nights back on the Sega Saturn. They also moved it up to the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and then, of course, we had Nights Journey of Dreams for the Wii. I would love to see Nights come back straight up from Sega as an actual full-fledged release. Now, I don't know if they would get the full amount for a game from Nights if they did release it. Like, I don't think it's gonna come out and be like a $60 game, nothing like that. But we just saw them announce remake of Super Monkey Ball, one that I'm still curious how they're gonna make all that work, considering Banana Blitz was like a motion game, mostly with motion controls on the Wii. We'll see how they redesign that. But if we get something from the Night series to continue it, and I think it would work right now, at least to sell fairly well. It also depends on the pricing. Is it a $20 to $30 game, or is it a $40 to $50 game? I do think that is going to affect the sales, but I also think there's a lot of people who would buy into that, especially if they have it at least on like Switch PC, definitely. I think it would also work fine on the PlayStation 4. I have questions about the Xbox One being able to support a game like that, but definitely into the Japanese audience with the Switch and the PS4, and that's where the trademark is, so I feel like that's what their mind would be. But again, mobile games are also very popular in Japan, so it could also just be a Nights gacha game. And our last bit of news is talk about a new Pokemon game that Tencent, yeah, that's right, Tencent like does everything now. They're all over the place. You see Tencent constantly, so keep that one in mind going forward into the future for games. I think you're gonna see them pop up in places you wouldn't expect. For example, let's talk about Tencent making a Pokemon game. Oh yeah, they're going to be doing that, apparently. This was actually tweeted out as you're seeing here. I saw this from Sirkin Toto, who said, wow, Tencent and the Pokemon Company are developing a new game, probably for smart devices, obviously. That's kind of Tencent's wheelhouse there. Development's taken over by Tencent's TIMI studio, which is responsible for the company's biggest hits, which also includes the upcoming Call of Duty Mobile, which actually that doesn't look too bad if you see it, considering it's on a mobile device, and no further details yet. I'm not surprised to hear about Tencent, which is massive in China, right? Like, they're huge there. And they're, of course, expanding out into the West and other parts of the world, so I'm not surprised to hear that Tencent could strike up a deal with the Pokemon Company to make what we assume to be a mobile game. Mobile games have been extremely lucrative for the Pokemon Company. Pokemon Go has made them an obscene amount of money. Just an obscene amount. So I'm not surprised to hear that the Pokemon Company would be licensing the name out to someone like Tencent, who can make a mobile game that is based, I think would do well in probably China is where they're aiming for, but they could also make it global. Not surprised. I'm curious as to which way they will go here. Would it be like a Pokemon Go style game, or would they do something different where it's an actual full adventure game? Or would it just be a straight up gacha style game that I'm surprised hasn't happened yet, because there are so many Pokemon and you can just literally summon and get different Pokemon, and then, oh, I'm out of Pokeballs, I gotta go buy some so I can summon more Pokemon. I mean, that seems like it just makes obscene amounts of cash, and I can't believe I don't have something like that yet. I mean, I'm talking like, think of like Fire Emblem, right? Heroes, how you're summoning characters and stuff, or maybe your favorite mobile game where it's a gacha style game and you're summoning characters. I don't know how we don't have something like that with Pokemon that's just like all the Pokemon, and then you go through and you got to earn them and stuff. That would make an obscene amount of money, especially in Japan, but probably in China as well. So we'll see what Tencent has in mind with the Pokemon Company. And let's just finish up with the comment of the day. This one's from Rated R, saying, why not just hire the Switch hackers? Specifically talking about how Switch hackers have been able to do so much. I don't think it has to do with Nintendo not knowing how to do it. I just think it has to do with Nintendo, for some reason, just not doing it. I don't know if they have a full redesign in mind right now. I mean, the eShop really hasn't changed that much either. It still doesn't even have background music, right? It seems like obvious things that a lot of us think of, and it's just taking Nintendo a long time to roll these changes out. And what if they never do it? Like, what if we get to the end of this generation and they finally give us messaging and folders, but then we get the next generation of the Switch and it just doesn't have that, and we start all over? That's the concern I have, and I'm telling you, it has nothing to do with them not knowing how to do it. It's just this weird dragging their feet thing right now. I don't get it. I have no idea what's going on. The online's paid for, right? People are paying $20 a year. I think we're ready for some kind of big OS upgrade, but every time we get a firmware update or something when it comes to an update, it's new icons. So we just want this big makeover overhaul thing to happen, and we're all just kind of waiting, so hopefully Nintendo has something in mind. Ladies, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's the JoyCon drift with the response. What do you think Nintendo's response, and do you think they're just not going to respond because there is that lawsuit, or do you think they actually have some sort of JoyCon revision just about ready to go, probably around the time of October when the new ones come out and in that Switch Lite, and then they'll talk a bit more about what they're going to do from there? Also, what about the Sega trademark for Knights? Do you think it's a mobile game, or do you think they have something bigger in mind? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.